we talked. Obviously, long flight home Saturday. Sunday was a tough day. I think the good news was that a lot of our guys obviously were very disappointed. Players, coaches, support staff to play the number one team in the country. Those things got to come about, and not just obviously the way we played to get to where we were, but obviously the way they played and to get that chance. Those don't come around very often. I would have had a handful of them during my coaching career. Would have loved to capitalize on it better. Didn't love the first half, obviously, but going back and reviewing the film, there were some things that went sideways early on, things that I think we can correct and put ourselves in a better position, but obviously not where we want to be. So Sunday needed to be a really big day. Had about 2.5 hours of learning for our coaches, with our coaches and our players. As a staff, we went through it repeatedly during the day, but kind of had to turn the page Sunday night to jump into our Minnesota preparation, a team that's won 3 games in a row, a team that has played very well down the stretch here. We know who Minnesota is, what they're all about. Another rematch game for us, so it's another great opportunity for us to get where we need to be. I think it was important to tell our guys, listen, the disappointment is real. You got to be able to own it. Being able to grow from it. But I do think that there's still a lot of positives that we've accomplished. Can't take those away from us, and a lot of good things ahead of us in the future. So with that, I'll give you a couple injury updates. All the guys that left the game, unfortunately, a lot of them were in the DB position. So Torrey Cox has already begun to pass his initial protocol, is on track to be able to practice by somewhat capacity tomorrow, but should be good to go by Wednesday, Thursday. Same thing, Pat Bryant. Also in the DB room, Terrence Brooks and Caleb Patterson, some soft tissue lower leg injuries, but I do think we'll have those guys, if not Tuesday, Wednesday for practice. Joe Barna, again, was a injury late in the game to the shoulder, but should, I think, be ready to go by Saturday. Nothing long term for him. And then Tyler Strain probably would be the one that's the most in question for Saturday. But I think he's very positive. I saw him bounce through the facility this morning, earlier today. So know a lot more Tuesday, Wednesday, and then when I talk with you guys on Thursday, I should have a better perspective. But a lot of positives. Had to call my wife and tell her that news. She was very relieved with that. I think perspective is always awesome, right? Like we get back late Saturday night. Obviously, my kids are in bed. We get home, and when you wake up in the morning, for at least my house, we got the kids on video, and my oldest woke up first. She came down, gave me a huge hug, and my little one woke up and she's had a loose tooth, and I am the local expert at pulling teeth. So she was very excited to know that Dad was home on Sunday morning. So to put a perspective, to pull my youngest bottom front tooth and make the whole world know that it's going to go forward, right? There was a lot of disappointment in Saturday, but to know that Sunday is another day, another opportunity this week to play Minnesota. I did take a lot of pride, to be quite honest, and simple thing my wife reminded me was, she said, on Sunday I'll leave to work. She said, "Do you think we'll be ranked?" I said, I don't know. It's not my hands. Obviously, I don't pay a lot of attention to that. But what I have learned since being here in an environment, when my first job, we were ranked literally every week upon the week. You just became used to it. When I was at Arkansas, I realized the effect it had on our program when we got ranked. And then this year, to have 7 straight weeks of us being ranked, first time that's been done in 22 years, 23 years. I realized how far we've gone. There's a lot of great disappointment. But to play the number one team in the country and to know that Illinois had a chance to be on that stage and obviously do a lot of things that showed we got a lot of work to do, but to be in that voice, to be in that conversation. Next week, I think when the college football playoffs come off, right, like we got a chance to set ourselves in a position this week against Minnesota. And obviously, just like everybody else, with the remaining 5 weeks of the year, we got 4 weeks to play to do a lot of really good things. And our program has grown a lot. The same crowd that was out there at Michigan that affected that program or that game in itself. It was literally the first game that I felt I had been a part of on a big stage that game was affected by the crowd, right? To have that. So whatever we got to do, 11 o'clock, whatever Illinois fans are going to show up, I hope you'll be there, be loud, right? Just means you got to 11 a.m. kickoff. You got to get that first beverage, whether it's a coffee, a mimosa, a bloody, a Red Bull, whatever you got going, man. Just get up and get it going and get here and get seated by about 10:30 and get ready to play be ready to be a part of a really good Big Ten football environment. I think should be pretty awesome. So with that, I'll open it up for questions.
Coach, what are some typical things you can expect playing a team coached by PJ Fleck?
What can I expect from Minnesota?
Yes.
Obviously PJ's record speaks for itself. I think his bowl record is unbelievable, right? Like just to have that many consecutive, to get in those bowls, but also to play them and win them. PJ's teams always get better, in my opinion. He's a very detail-oriented coach. He's a guy during my time here at Illinois. He and I've shared a lot of times on the field, but also, just a guy that I really personally enjoy, who he is, what he stands for. I think people would agree that, like I've always kind of said when we play this game, we're kind of complete opposites, but that's probably why we get along halfway decent. I think his approach to detail, his football fundamentals. One thing that's been impressive, right? So he had changeover and turnover at his coordinators, but they're really kind of the same Minnesota. He continues to hire. Each coordinator kind of has a flavor of their own, but especially when I was watching their special teams, right? Just another really good example of a well-coached football team in all three phases.
With Pat in particular, is he a guy because of the volume of reps he's had in his career?
Pat Bryant?
Yeah, if you were cleared on to practice Wednesday or Thursday.
That's a very good point. Yeah, I think the more, and this is probably coach-driven, not player-driven. I think the coaches, need to have assurance that what they see during the week is what you see on Saturday. And there was actually an example of this earlier this year for a player that really will remain disclosed at this time as well, but a guy that came in on Sunday and just was feeling a little bit different than when he finished the game. It was a game that we had won. Everybody's feeling good, and I kind of got that call on Sunday, and I'm like, really? And then wasn't able to practice Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Maybe got a little bit of limited walkthrough on Thursday and Friday, and went out and played probably the best game of his career on Saturday. But he's a multi-year starter, right? So I think there is that level, especially with Pat. And to be honest, I feel fairly confident, Pat. I mean, he literally told me yesterday there's not a chance he's not playing in this game. But I said, unless you stayed at Holiday Inn Express last night and got a doctorate degree I didn't aware of, you don't get to make that call, right? But he assured me he's going to play. But for us, if someone can't play, like one of the balancing acts you got to have as a coach, if you have someone that you feel confident about, you could play them with limited reps. It actually is beneficial to rep the guys that can play in his place, right? So for a guy like Pat Bryant, right, if he can't really go until Wednesday, Thursday full go, the value of having Malik Elzy, Alex Kapka-Jones, Hank Bate, like all those guys that are going to fill into that void has been really good.
Defensively, takeaways have been such a big part
Yeah.
and help. But what do you feel like you guys, identity-wise, can do if maybe those aren't coming in bunches? Like we've seen?
Well, we can't give up big plays, right? Like, I know, I remember one stat I think I saw in the Oregon-Ohio State game. I think Ohio State had given up, I believe, 8 plays of over 25 yards, over 20 yards was a pretty staggering number that come out of it. And, that's going into our game plan. Obviously, we didn't hold true to that in certain regards defensively. In the second half, a little different, but there was just too many free yardage in that first half. And if you go back to really the two worst halves of the season for us defensively have been the second half of Purdue and the first half of Oregon. Both kind of uniquely different, but both of them were victims of big plays, right? And I think that has to be a very resounding effort by our defense, not only in our game plan, but also our game schemes and also our players, that we just have to minimize the big play opportunities. You have to make them earn everything.
What has maybe Aiden Lawfrey stacking some healthy weeks after another maybe done for him and for the run game?
Well, I just think our guys have a lot of confidence. There's a reason Aiden Lawfrey started the first half against Eastern Illinois. From last spring through the summer, through fall camp, he'd been our most consistent, steady performer, a guy that brings his lunch pail to work every day, goes to work, an awesome mom and dad from Gibson City who just kind of embody and embolize everything that we want about this program. And on top of that, he's very quick and he's very talented. So he had a couple, it was kind of probably one of the most defeating parts of Sunday or Saturday's game, Sunday's film analysis, is to see those two first big runs or two big plays. It's 14-0. It's not where you want to be, but we have two good things. And then we gave up then we had a turnover, and that kind of deflated those two or three good runs that we had. So I want to make sure that we run the ball consistently. I think to win games in the Big Ten, you got to run the ball, defend the run, and cover kicks. And obviously, we had times haven't been able to do that, but he's got to be a big part of it.
But Luke's a big reason you guys are has been as successful as you've been. What are the points of emphasis after a game that I think he?
Yeah, I think first off, I asked Barry, I asked all the coaches, but in this case, right, it's Barry and Luke specifically, right, to have a good conversation on Sunday. What maybe Luke was trying to tell us that we didn't hear, right, or that we didn't see. And I think Barry had some really good answers last night that I thought were really good. Listen, I think you guys know me well enough. I talk about communication a lot, right? And communication is a two-way street. You got to be able to speak it, they got to be able to hear it, and then vice versa. When they're telling you things, even verbally or non-verbally, you got to be able to understand it and hear it. And, I just think that Luke has got so much respect, not only in the players' locker room, but in the coaches' meeting rooms, right? Just what he says carries a lot of weight, and I think because of that, we have to be very, very conscientious of what he's trying to tell us during the course of the week.
Just keep ask what were some of the feedback he gave you guys?
No, because then that would be obviously, but I would just tell you that like communication is really good, right? There are certain things that Luke does very, very well, and certain things that he sees well, can make quick decisions on, and if not, then things get crowdy and gray, and that's when it doesn't go well. So the thing that I would give you, I mean, not tipping off anything, he's going to be put on a list here this week that is going to be very, very rewarding for what he's done, right? Another defensive player, the same thing. The good news is, I think going into the year, we had players that we thought were good, and now other people are recognizing that. But Luke himself, one of the greatest traits you can have as a quarterback, in my opinion, during the course of the game, those that can make something of nothing are a little bit different, right? But the ones that can recognize and adjust either prior or post game to what makes them better next week are truly the great ones, are truly the ones that you can build off of and get better. And what I've learned from Luke this year is he truly possesses that quality, which a year ago I didn't know that there, but now I know it more than ever.
Because the rankings don't matter to you,
Mm-hmm.
but it sounds like you maybe were a little bit surprised you were still in there. Is that
Yeah,
right?
yeah, great point. I'm sorry, I didn't finish it. My wife said, I said, I didn't know, right? And she goes, what do you mean? She goes, you've got 2 losses against 2 teams that are 1-3 and never lost a game, and you played them both at their place, right? And so I probably need to listen to my wife more often, right? But I kind of laughed and turned around, but I mean, no way am I, I own those 2 losses and where it is, but I do think there's probably a national, I know you get a vote, right? But,
Right.
but I think from the outside world, 2 years ago, that's just an Illinois program that gets booted out, right? And I think for us, even though it stayed in there 24, I think it just speaks volumes about what the outside world is seeing. I know I get it more from our coaches, right? That I travel around, see around, people that give me feedback, people that know football. When I see and meet with the commentators, it's just like there's a difference, right? And to be ranked 7 weeks, I don't care what anybody says, right? And since the last time that happened is 2001, perception is changing. We can't change it overnight, right? It's very interesting for me to watch college football. I think there's more parity right now than ever before. Parity is awesome from Illinois, right? Like the more we can get on the same playing field, and I hope to heck this revenue share goes forward, and if we're all dealing, with the same NIL from, whatever it ends, if I can handle being within a couple million of each other, this is crazy to say, right? But last year we were at 2 million, and the team we competed against was at 20 million. That's not apples and oranges, right? Or however you want to say it. It's not comparable, right? And if we can all get on the same playing field, I love to do what I love to do, but you put me on the same playing field, give me the same rules, and we'll play our ass every day, right? And that's just, I know that to be true, right? And that's what I get excited about, because our guys are understanding that they can play with anybody. The only thing that I told our team that I really, I want to make sure that we eradicate from our program is on that plane ride over and the walkthrough on Thursday, the walkthrough on Friday, the pregame on Saturday, I really felt those guys felt they could go out there and win that football game, and they started that way. And then when we got punched a little bit, I think there wasn't anybody that you could just sit to a whole group, but I think there was enough people that showed up that were maybe they don't quite know if we can have this moment, right? And that opponent will find, Oregon will find that person, right? And we had enough things go wrong offensively, enough things go wrong defensively. Special teams was actually pretty solid. We want to start off the game putting their returner, who's a great returner, on the opening kickoff inside the 20. You can't and the thing that I get frustrated with on our first defensive drive, we get a 3rd and 7 and a 3rd and 6. You can't get it any better than that. To have Oregon off schedule and they convert it, and that second one was a 3rd and 6 that converts for a touchdown. It goes all the way across the field. We can't have that, right? And then, I was upset, we gave first down, right? It sounds silly, right? But Luke Altmaier was not down on the second play, right? So now instead of a 3rd and 5, we got a 3rd and 15. We can't control that. Can't control they grab his face mask. It is what it is, right? And then that, when you start one possession, right, and then you give up 2 scores, it's just hard. And then that third one is 14-14. We throw the shot play and get a pick. That probably was almost a point where it's it's too much. The number 1 team it's hard to come over that. That's why at halftime I'm let's reset. We're starting, because I wanted them to understand they could play winning football on the road, right? And we've had 3 tough venues. Nebraska, we had success. Penn State, moderate success, and then Oregon was obviously minimal success, especially in the first half. So we're a program that's on the rise. It's a program that's building, and we're gonna get better every opportunity. I promise you, we got better from Saturday night till today, and we'll get better this week.
Brett, in terms of Luke, has the communication where you've seen him the most development out of him from last year to this year? Because he's talked to us a lot about trying to deal with failure and adversity a lot better internally for him, but it almost seems like he's communicating with you a heck of a lot more than he was.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, 100%. I think that's just part of the world that we're in, this portal world, right? Like, listen, Melvin Priestley probably played his best game on Saturday, to be honest, against some really good opponents, right? So he's a portal guy, and I'm probably communicating with Melvin Priestley better than I ever have in his lifetime, right? He fell off his tricycle last week, bruised his butt, right? And we had a nice conversation about a bruised ass, which I think was very comical, right? But like I think the part that really that I think as coaches we constantly evolve to is it's a different world, right? You're going to have these players come in and play immediately in your program, and you have to develop. That's why I tell our coaches every day in your building, you're either building or tearing down a relationship, whether you're consciously doing it or not. When you pass them in the hallway, the way you correct them, the way you teach them, the way you talk to them, a coach that bridges a gap to the other side of the ball, like we're building communication. But for sure, Luke is not he's just not natural, go in, take over a room, but he can when he's confident, right? And he's got a great voice. He is so intelligent. I love meeting with him. I meet with the quarterbacks twice a week, just me and the quarterbacks with Art. Barry's in for one of the meetings, and just to have that meeting, and the reason I really wanted to increase it this year was I wanted more communication between I want them to feel. I always come in. I usually go get a steamer workout and come in sweaty with a towel around my neck, kick my feet up because I want them to be relaxed. I don't want them to see me as the head coach that they reserve to talk themselves to. So just a little bridge building there, I think, goes a long way.
Brett, did you get any clarity from the non-targeting call from the Big Ten, and if so, can you?
Yeah, great question. And again, this isn't like I get it, but Pat's obviously in concussion protocol. Everything's trending in the right way there, and is taking himself and put himself as far as he could be right now. It's a 5-day process, but everything indicates going to be there. Obviously, I watched the film after the game, Saturday night flying home, and then Sunday. And so what we routinely do is send in X number of plays, and that was one of the plays I sent in. And if they told me it's not, I want to know who made that decision and how, right? Because it clearly shows to me that he was struck in the head with a forearm, and I want to know how it gets reversed. I understand if that wasn't called. I don't understand how it was called and taken away. That's what I can't. And if I was Pat Bryant, or I got to my phone and Pat Bryant's dad called me, like that's the people I care about answering to. I don't give a shit about anybody else. I care about answering my players' parents about their safety, and I want to know why, but more importantly, I want to know for us to move forward. If that's legal, like I don't want to teach that, but I want to know the rules that we're playing with, and that's the number one reason. We sent in about a half a dozen plays that were very concerning. 4 of them were player safety related, and I got to have those answers.
Along the line of communication, how do you feel like we talked about protection on Saturday? How do you feel like your line is communicating protection?
O-line?
O-line, sorry.
Yeah. Well, first off, Oregon presents a little bit of a unique. They run the third and 15, even though it was a run, they give a unique look. So they had the linebacker walk line scrimmage, which gives like a different front that we treat him as a D lineman. So I think there's probably still work to be done there. But on the same account, I think our guys, just not pre-snap communicate, but some of that stuff's post-snap, right? Like they see one thing and it rocks out, and there's got to be communication within the play, not verbally, but non-verbally, right, to slide and push. So the more we can do and the more we can keep building that, I think simplicity is a good thing, but also just playing that 100 miles an hour, I think really helps. And, like I said, Melvin played very well. The other 4 guys were flashes, but not good enough for 4 quarters.
Brett, obviously you coach 120 players.
Yep.
You also got coaches. How do you teach them? What's your coaching of coaches?
It's probably a good question for them, but I really probably, especially now in the latter part of my career, I would say that I would enjoy coaching the coaches just as much as I do with the players. I don't think I used to say that or do that, but I remember being in my first staff meeting as a head coach. I'm 35 years old, sitting at the front of the table, and most of the guys in the room are older than me. And here I am trying to tell them how to coach. Right now we went 12-1 and did some good things, but ever since then I realized that one of the things that I was hesitant to in my first part of my career is sharing the things that I had been taught to put me in a position I was in. Coach Snyder, I go back to like that day when I got named a head coach. Coach Snyder said, "Hey, you became the head coach today because you're Bret Bielema, not because you've been Hayden Fry or Kirk Ferentz or Bill Snyder or Barry Alvarez, now Bill Belichick, right? Like you are in this position because of who you are." And it took me a while to realize, like, I was taught some really good things along the way, and I should regurgitate that. So I would say a large portion of my time during the out of season and the game week is coaching my coaches on how to play the game, understand things. A lot of times those guys will make comments that I'll say something before it happens, and I didn't ever think of it that way, that like right, wrong, or different. It just there's things that you see and are coming, that the more I can educate those guys, because someone taught me that as well, right? That's a big part of it, and I enjoy it. It's probably one of the most satisfying parts of my job. This rule this year that allowed us to hire all these young coaches, like to coach with Grant, Kevin. I got so many former players. Actually, I have a guy now, Trent Harris, that I coached at the Giants, right, and the Patriots. Like a guy I didn't coach in college, I coached on the highest level, and those are very rewarding relationships to build.
You talked about turning the page from Saturday's game. Can your guys maybe also take a fuel and a fire from that loss, or do you want it to kind of completely put it in?
Yeah, clarification. When I say turn the page, I just mean you can't sit and dwell on what happened yesterday. You have to move forward. But I think I've said it a couple times in here. One of our first team goals is remember the past, prepare for the future. So listen, Oregon isn't going to be left in Oregon. Oregon jumped on the plane with us. You threw it in your backpack or your duffel bag, or for me, I can't let it go out of my head. And really, even Sunday was hard for me to move, right? But we take a break at 6:15, and I give them an hour dinner break, and I come back and I specifically turn the page and leave everything from Oregon, XOs, film, and just talk moving forward where we are in college football, and then more importantly where we are against Minnesota. I gave keys to victory against Minnesota on Sunday night. Usually I wait till Tuesday morning just because I felt it was going to be a great way for me to show them where we're going.
Thank you, guys.